a 22 revolver from his jacket and raises it up towards, up in the air. Some say towards the stage. Unclear there in some ways. Which leads to the Hell's Angel Alan Pissarro leaping from the sound scaffolding, parrying the gun with his left hand, and stabbing Hunter in the upper back and neck with a knife that's in his right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter himself then is swarmed by the Hell's Angels, and they
You are listening to Tape Spaghetti, the podcast about the twisted and tangled innards of the music industry. Some of this content may not be for all listeners or viewers, so if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. We'll just catch you on the next one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode of Tape Spaghetti. I am Scott Marquardt. This here, my lovely companion, is Blake Weiland. And funnily
companion?
enough,
wow.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
For some of you, you might be listening straight through, as this is part 2 of our series on the Rolling Stones' fateful 1969 tour. But for Blake and I, there's actually been quite a gap between the recording of part 1 and part 2. We went all the way to California. I and some of my team got stuck in California because there was a big ice storm back in Nashville and basically everywhere on the eastern part of the United States. So I spent about 3 days longer in California than I had planned to, which sounds nice in that, it's nicer weather than it is here presently. Sure. As you can tell from my hat, it's cold. But a number of those days were spent going to the airport, packed up and ready to go, sitting at the airport for 5-6 hours, and then ultimately having the airline be like, nah, not going to happen. And being like, oh, I guess I'll go back to a hotel and do it all over again tomorrow.
I mean, you could have had an adventure like our friend Eli. He had a planes, trains, and automobiles style adventure trying to get home, but he did get home. Shout out Carl.
Yes. The brief story there for the listeners are one of our team, Eli, who lives in upstate New York. He flew through to Las Vegas and then found out that his plane flight from Vegas to Albany got canceled. So he, on a whim, booked another flight to Rochester, which is not where he lives, but was like, I don't know, I'll be closer than I am now. I'll figure it out. And he met a lovely man named Carl getting onto his plane and explained what he was doing. And Carl was like, oh, well, I'm going to Albany. I was going to go to Albany tomorrow for a conference. I'll just give you a ride. So Carl drove Eli all the way from Rochester to his house, and I think stayed the night there. There's still good in the world, Blake. Isn't that nice?
Sounded like Eli. I talked to him after it happened on the phone, and sounded like they unburied his Chevy Silverado from the frigid winter storm and kicked in the 4-wheel drive and let that diesel pour, baby, and just made it all the way to Albany.
What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's very American, in my opinion. I like it.
It sure is. I'll tell you, though, I am happy to be back. I spent 9 nights in California, which is more than I had planned.
Yeah. I didn't envy you. I mean, it's not that it, as far as places to be stuck that goes, there's worse. But like you said, airports are never fun to be stuck in.
Not particularly, though. No. I'm a Amex Platinum card holder, so I have the Centurion lounges, which makes things quite nice. Right?
Oh, I've never been in those. They don't let plebes like me in there.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. They're more crowded than they used to be. The thing is, like, in my experience, the like Delta American airline lounges, those ones, they'll be like, yeah, we got some sandwiches for you over here, and like there's like 2 beers and a wine you can get for free, and then everything else costs money. The Centurion lounges and the Chase ones, which are really nice too, is like a full hot bar. They usually have breakfast, lunch, and dinner available at all times because you never know where you're coming from. And it's like the food's actually quite good, unlimited drinks. People will come pass around, sparkling rosé, lest you have to get up, which would be unbelievable. It is a pretty nice experience. Definitely only worth it if you travel a lot, and I travel a lot, so it's worth it to me.
Yeah. I had a Habit burger and fell asleep on the plane and woke up in Portland. So it was a little bit of the same experience, right?
Is a Habit burger is it like a group of nuns that prepare these burgers for people at the airport as some sort of mission? Or
I'm realizing I thought that the Burger chain in California was I knew it wasn't. It's not an In-N-Out. It's not as well known as that. But I thought it was a more well-known burger chain than it is. But apparently, every time I bring it up to somebody, they have a similar question to your line of thinking. So yeah, it's the other California burger chain, and it's pretty good.
Excuse me. Got a little phlegm here. Wasn't in response to the Habit Burger. Sounds delicious. I've met very few burgers in my life that I didn't like.
I think you would like a Habit Burger.
I have been eating a lot of hotel burgers, which is definitely its own like section and vibe in the burger world.
Yes.
But I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Burger's always a safe choice, I think.
Yeah. Yes, it's hard to screw it up, though I have had some questionable ones.
I've had some sus ones.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm really worried about a place and I definitely have to eat there, the pizza is what I feel like is the least likely thing to give me some sort of gastrointestinal distress.
Yeah, they cook it real hot. They have to. You know,
and it's just like dough and like the meat in there is preserved already.
Right.
You know, so there's not a lot. You're not going to get salmonella. I mean, you could. You probably can get it from anything. I'm sure people out there are like, it's the flour. The flour can do it, which is, I think, true.
It is true.
I always thought the reason you couldn't eat cookie dough was because of the eggs, but that was just my parents, who are baby boomers, bringing that in. In fact, it's the flour.
It's the flour. But you know what? Not one time has that ever stopped me from eating cookie dough.
Me either. Those places that like sell like bowls of cookie dough, they like treat the flour with like a UV light thing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty clever.
Well, now that we're through the gastronomic section of the podcast,
we will keep that for our gourmand podcast that we'll start any day now.
Any day. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's my cue, Blake. So, part one, we covered pretty much everything leading up to this 1969 tour that the Rolling Stones undertake, and even kind of the planning and initial preparation of it. I'm going to rehash a little bit of that just for some context for some people that maybe it's been a minute, maybe you waited a week and now you're back to it. So the Rolling Stones went through this kind of tumultuous moment where Brian Jones, who's like an incredibly important figure in the founding of the Rolling Stones and really defines a lot of like the early decision making in the band and all that, gets fired from the band and is replaced by Mick Taylor. And tragically, he dies fairly quickly thereafter. After that. So the Rolling Stones are really in kind of this transformative moment in their career. And a lot of the band members, at least in hindsight, have been like, it was a dark time. There were ghosts around us. You know, all of that really kind of colored everything. And amid this difficult and tumultuous time, that they're also musically kind of going back to what they were known for, from like some divergences where they were kind of trying to be the Beatles light in some ways. They undertake this incredible United States tour that really redefines everything that a tour is in a lot of ways. Things that we take for granted these days in terms of, playing at large stadiums, having sound that's actually developed for and built for the stadium environment. They really revolutionize bringing light into concerts in this really, really major way, having stages in a lot of ways that are built up so that people can actually see from all the different seats that they're sitting at. For the first time, this is like a tour at this scale where people can listen to the music. They can actually hear the music, and they're not just screaming like a bunch of teenage girls at Shea Stadium seeing the Beatles. They're in a lot of cases kind of sitting back and grooving and vibing to the actual music. That's happening, which is a really cool thing. The Rolling Stones employ a whole cast of people to build this out, whether it's from the sound to the lighting to the actual business elements of running each of these distinct shows that are happening at each location. They take over the ticketing and are running the box office themselves in a lot of cases, being paid in ways that bands are not typically paid. It's all a really cool thing. And that was the subject, of course, of part one that many of you would have heard through there. But the good of this and the revolutionary components of this come with some bad. Most centrally, that the band is selling tickets for a pretty high price relative to the time, at least. They're selling $3 to $8 tickets, which is somewhere between, $20, $25 and $50, $60 today, which doesn't sound like a lot to anybody else that's alive here in 2026 with us. But back then, That's unbelievable. A lot of people don't have that kind of money to spend towards entertainment. So it's a real thing. And this is creating a narrative that is being shared by a number of writers, including Rolling Stone's Ralph Gleason, that the band is being greedy. And they're milking this counterculture, the hippie movement of the late 60s, which many people are still holding up as this idealistic future. The band is coming in to milk this for everything that it's got. And they're making a whole lot of money in the process. Mm-hmm. And that is what leads us to part 2. Did I miss anything, Blake?
I don't think so. I think you summarized everything that needed to be summarized there.
You are way too used to me just talking for minutes and minutes and minutes at a time. Thank you for being a good friend.
Hey, if you stop talking, that's when the podcast gets weird. That's what I tell everybody I podcast with.
Just keep talking.
Keep talking. When you stop, that's when people tune out.
That makes sense. Well, we're not going to let them tune out, Blake, because we're going to launch right ahead forward. So let's talk a little bit about the tour that actually happened. So November 7th, the band kicks off this tour in Fort Collins, Colorado at Colorado State University. Keep in mind, the band hadn't toured the U.S. in 3 years. They hadn't really done a lot of touring in general in that time. And so they're pretty rusty at this show. I'm not entirely sure why they picked. Most bands don't pick Colorado as a jumping off point.
That's interesting. Yeah, they usually start on a coast.
Yeah, usually they'll start on the East Coast and work their way over, most commonly. So that's a little bit abnormal. But one thing to remember is that the band's coming all the way over from England, and suddenly they're in the Mile High City playing a show, running around the stage. I mean, you've seen at least video of Mick Jagger. He is not taking it easy out there. He's like doing an athletic performance. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, they did anticipate this, but they have oxygen tanks backstage that in many cases between songs, they're going to suck on an oxygen tank like you see athletes doing sometimes, just to make sure they're getting the oxygen saturation to go out and hit the next song.
I thought you were going to say they smoked extra cigarettes in prepreparation, because that
they probably
seems
were
like
doing
something...
that too. Yeah.
All right.
It's 1969. They're probably taking a drag of cigarette and taking a hit of oxygen at the same time.
It opens the lungs up for the oxygen to flow into.
I was born too late, Blake. So it's a bit of a rusty start, but they kind of muscle their way through it, and they're kind of, finding their footing again. This is always a weird thing when you're in even a great big band. You talk to people that play in bands like this, and you're like, have you guys ever had a bad show? And they're like, oh yeah, of course we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you don't think of it as an audience member is that those guys are just like, oh, everything really hit the fan that tonight.
Yeah. This is slightly related, but I saw something on Threads today where somebody was apparently had a bad show at NAMM, the convention we were just at. And somebody in the comments was like, if you know how to play your instrument, how can you ever have a bad show? I'm like, oh, tell me you've never performed before. On. Shut up. Yeah.
LeBron James knows everything about a basketball and a basketball court. And even he had like his first day that he scored in single digits in 15 years or something, a couple months back. It happens.
It happens. Okay.
We're all human, man.
Yeah. And that's what makes it interesting. If every show was perfect, there would be no danger there and no excitement.
Exactly. This is the thing. The possibility of failure is what makes it fun and exciting for everybody. Not to go too off the rails here, but I was at a music festival last year in Salt Lake City, and lots of great bands played and everything. And what the headliner on Sunday night was Justice, the French sort of like DJ group. And it was really cool lights and everything. But like from my sense being out in the audience was like that set was totally pre-programmed. Like they worked that out a couple months prior, got all the lights synced up and everything. And those guys are mostly up there bopping around and maybe playing the occasional part, but it's all happening. But some of my friends that weren't musicians, they're like, oh man, that's just sounded so good. Like that was the best show of the weekend. I'm like, that's not fair. You can't compare that. Like that's all like a spectacle that's all pre-programmed and ready to go. There is no little chance of failure outside of like a power outage or a USB cable becoming unplugged.
Right. Yeah, they kind of just hit. I don't want to use the old DJ disparaging term, but in this situation, it's like they hit a button and dance around. That's kind of the main thing. Yeah.
Pop.
Yeah.
Done. Yeah. 100%.
Takes skill to put that together. Not taken away from that, but it's just not as exciting as some rock and roll show. like what we're talking
100%.
about today.
Exactly. Anyway, so the Rolling Stones come back from this first night. The very next night, they're in Los Angeles, which is a heck of a move. I'm not entirely sure how they pulled that off. They're playing at the Forum in LA. And this is really where they kind of find their footing in night 2.
I'm not sure how they pulled it off either.
This show really establishes the template for the set list for kind of the rest of the tour. They're doing like some slower blues numbers like Midnight Rambler that really builds, and they build that into this high energy rock, and they're hitting Street Fighting Man and that sort of stuff that's really carrying it. Man, to be these guys in 1969. The tour brings with it some really cool, like heavy hitting support acts. They've got B.B. King and Ike and Tina Turner on this one. Chuck Berry's popping in on some dates, depending on the thing. So they've got this whole kind of traveling carnival atmosphere with all these incredible, cool, talented people just going from city to city, lining them up and knocking them down. Couple weeks later, they're in New York City. So again, they're just zigzagging all over, man. And they're playing at Madison Square Garden, doing 2 nights in New York City. This is really like kind of the peak of the tour musically, and is recorded for the live album Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. Thank you. So this is, you can go back and hear this, and it's cool. It's a band at the absolute top of its game, hitting their stride in kind of the middle of the tour, knowing just what they're doing. It's pretty sweet. Janis Joplin joins Ike and Tina Turner on stage for an impromptu performance. Everyone's kind of there, like all the upper crust of 60s music world are like backstage at this show. It's the place to be.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, and we kind of spoke to this earlier, we'll weave back into it, but just to note here chronologically, during a press conference at the Rainbow Room in New York is when Mick Jagger publicly commits to the free concert that we will be talking about a little bit more later, despite not really knowing how they're going to do it yet. Okay. We'll get to that in a little bit, but just wanted to note this is where it happens chronologically. So a couple days later, they're down in West Palm Beach, Florida at the West Palm Beach Pop Festival. This is an outdoor festival, and it's just about a week before what will become of Altamont happens. It's a chaotic festival. It's unseasonably cold down there for Florida, for West Palm Beach, no less. The crowd's restless. It's kind of a rough one in a lot of ways, as outdoor festivals can be, but the band manages to hold it, together without real significant incident on their end. So they're kind of feeling at this point like, all right, we know how to do this. We know how to do outdoor festivals. It won't always be perfect, but like nothing can phase us. We're the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, we got it handled.
So after this, the band takes a couple of days and they go over to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and decide to record a couple of tracks. And these guys, like all of the British guys in the 60s, are just absolute fiends for like Southern blues music. That's like what they absolutely love, especially the Rolling Stones. So going to Muscle Shoals and being able to be a part of that scene and record in this place with some of their favorite bands and albums have recorded is really special for them. And they have this cool burst of creativity. In fact, they create Brown Sugar, Wild Horses, and You Gotta Move all in these like couple day sessions in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, these sessions are a little bit legendary. A lot of people know about these. They were on fire at this point, and that energy was really captured in this moment.
Yeah, that's the thing to remember. For kind of setting the stage for where the band's at right now. Nothing can mess them up. They're a band at the top of their game. They've just reinvented how rock concerts work. They're in America. They're selling out larger stadiums than have ever really been sold out before. Everything sounds great and looks great. They just went in the studio and ripped out some absolutely downright legendary songs that are still legendary to this day. Just because they took a beat and decided, let's play for a little bit. Boom, legend. Here's Brown Sugar and Wild Horses. Unbelievable. So, I mean, that combined with a healthy dose of just about any narcotic or other substance you could find, I think you'd be feeling like Superman right about now. Right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they were.
I am certain they were. Yeah. So that's the headspace these guys are in at this time, which is just like a headspace probably only like several hundred people and a few heads of state have ever really felt.
I think you might even be being generous there. I was going to say like 25 people. But
I will. Sure. I will never know it.
No, that is not a realm I think either of us are ever going to enter.
Mm-hmm. So with that, kind of context set chronologically, to rewind us back again a little bit to what we were kind of setting the stage for in last episode, due to these allegations of greed that are kind of occurring, the Rolling Stones are like, oh, how can we counteract some of this? Like, we need to, we're not the bad guys, right? We're the rock and roll guys. We're not the suits.
No,
we're not the guys
cool.
counting our money, behind the scenes. We're the cool guys. That's the thing, right? So what can we do to re-earn our stripes there and not have everyone, see us as just a bunch of fat cats trying to give us our money? So they come up with the idea, what if we play a free concert? That could be pretty cool.
The biggest band the biggest touring band in the world, the Beatles do still exist at this point, but they are not touring, decides to do a free concert. We've heard this story on this podcast before, but not quite to this degree, I don't think.
No. But in a similar locale, they think, where should we do it? We're trying to, kind of cement ourselves as still a real and not cynical part of the counterculture that's happening at the time. Mm-hmm. Where would you want to go in 1969 to cement yourselves as a real part of the counterculture?
I feel like you got to go to California.
I think you got to go to California, and I think beyond that, you got to go to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. With flowers in your hair, man. Yeah.
Go see the Haight-Ashbury area. Get some LSD from Charles Manson. The whole thing.
The hate, the all of it.
I always say Haight. I know what it is, but yeah,
I believe it's Haight-Ashbury.
I think you're right.
Always when you hear somebody pronounce something and you're like, wait, that's not the way I say it. You're like, either they're wrong or I'm wrong.
I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. I'm gonna say for most things, if I'm saying it differently than you're probably saying it right most of the time.
That's very sweet of you.
I think. Well, you have a degree, and I don't.
Well, I always I once heard somebody say, never give anyone, well, I'm paraphrasing, for mispronouncing a word because it means that they read.
All right. Fair enough. I do read.
They read that word, but haven't heard it pronounced. And that's good. It's good.
Fair enough. All right. We'll go with that.
Yep. So anyway, I'm treating this kind of like the audience doesn't know, but of course there was a part one. So they kind of know what's up.
They got it.
The Rolling Stones indeed decide that they are going to put on a free concert in San Francisco. And the good news of this is that it's been done before. The Grateful Dead has been doing shows like free concerts in San Francisco going back several years at this point. Mm-hmm. So I think in their early, like conception of it, they're like, oh, great, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
That'll be fine. Right. I don't know if they're going into it thinking they're going to have to completely build something from scratch in exactly the way that they kind of ended up doing.
I don't know that there's going to be a better moment to do this, but speaking of, rip Bob Weir,
That's right. That feels like eons ago already, and it hasn't been.
Yep. I think he passed in between the recordings, actually.
You're right. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Well, R.I.P. Bob Weir. I just learned that Catherine O'Hara died as we're recording this.
Yeah. Also, rip. Man, she was awesome.
I know.
Everything she's been in. Everything. So good.
Moment of silence. Okay. We did it. All right. So the Rolling Stones plan to play in Golden Gate Park. And this is where the Grateful Dead has been doing their free concerts for years. So Sam Cutler, the Rolling Stones tour manager, is really heavily relying on the advice of the Grateful Dead. They're kind of buddies. The Grateful Dead's manager at the time is Rock Scully. They know what they're doing. They've done this for years. And so they're like, okay, this is the date it's going to be. Mick Jagger's already announced it. We're going to work closely with those guys. They're going to help us out. They're going to play on the bill. So it'll all be kind of okay. And that's kind of the MO that they're operating under. But they run into some trouble.
Okay.
San Francisco's mayor, Joseph Alioto, and city officials claim a scheduling conflict with the San Francisco 49ers game that's happening at the nearby stadium, which I guess was Kezar Stadium at the same time. That's before my time.
I don't know.
And so they basically revoked the possibility of doing the show there a couple days beforehand. I also see some people note that the organizers failed to secure the permits. This is all a little bit weird and muddy. So I see these things like all kind of running together, where they'll say they didn't get the permits right, but also that the city was like, oh no, we're not going to issue the permits. And also like some, intimate that for various reasons, the city of San Francisco is like, we don't want this to happen.
We don't want bring hippies to our, wait a minute.
But I mean, there's that, but also, I mean, this is the event, right? I mean, for the first time ever, people are spending $50 to go see a concert. And so if you want to see it for free, this is your opportunity.
It's going to be a flood. Like, I don't know that any metropolitan area is quite prepared to deal with this influx of people.
No, not what it became. So anyway, very shortly before the concert is like supposed to actually go down, everything's suddenly in flux, and the band and their management are having to figure out, what do we do now? So they move to point B. So point B, or plan B, excuse me. It's Friday.
You're already on plan B.
That's right. They moved to plan B, which is the Sears Point Raceway in nearby Sonoma. So they go ahead and kind of pull the trigger on this and look to switch it. And they start building the stage basically right away because they don't got a lot of time. And again, it's a pretty big undertaking they've got to get done. This seems like it could all work out just fine, except for a rights issue that kind of occurs. So the band works out that they want to actually film this concert, and why not? They're doing this big legendary, free concert. Of course, it's supposed to show how cool and awesome and vibey they are. So why wouldn't you want to disseminate it out to everybody as this big legendary thing? Of course, they just taped the Madison Square Garden show, and I don't know if they know it at the time, but that's going to go on to be a legendary recording. So anyway, why wouldn't you want people to film something that you're doing when you're at the top of your game and everything's so awesome and nothing can ever go wrong? You may as well as document every minute of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So they get the Maisels brothers to record this film, and it's what would eventually become Gimme Shelter. The trick is that Gimme Shelter, the film, by the way, not the song. The trick is that the owners of the Sears Point Raceway, they have some rights into whether or not things are being recorded in their area that are separate from the actual rights to the concert itself. So they see this as a bit of an opportunity to maybe make a little bit of scratch, and maybe fairly, who knows? They are indeed providing the venue. So they demand $100,000 escrow fee in order for the band to record. And that's a lot of money these days. But that's not even necessarily the big bugaboo. The bugaboo is that they ask for distribution rights to the film.
Oh, yeah, that's a different thing.
That's a whole lot. Not only are you giving them a ton of money up front, I don't know how full the coffers were at this time for the Stones. Probably decently full, but still, that's a lot of money to hand over while you're in the middle of putting on something that you're going to make no money from. Tricky for the cash flow.
Yeah. And there's also probably a degree of like, no, that's how we're doing it for free. We're going to distribute this and like make something on it. That's how we're doing it.
Yeah, and that can happen, right? You're exactly right. Right when you're like, we're going to do it for free, then everyone else is like, pay us. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So Mick Jagger and the band's management team, focused on the long-term revenue and legacy of the film, are like, no way. We're not going to give you, eternal rights to this thing that we're paying to film otherwise and features us doing what we do. What did you guys do? You just own the land. You know what I mean? I'm not going to give my landlord where I have the business right now rights to this podcast just because we recorded it on the land that I rent.
Right. It's a good example, actually.
Yeah. So I get it. So now 48 hours before the concert's set to start, the band is like, okay, we're not going to do this. So that whole stage that is like mostly built right now, tear that down.
Oh, that's just what workers like to do as well. They're like, oh, cool. We'll just go ahead and disassemble this thing.
Oh, yeah. And better yet, when we issue the order for you to tear it down, we don't know where we're going to put it yet. Just not there. So go ahead and put that thing in a truck. We'll radio you when we know where you're going to build this stage again for the biggest concert of our lifetimes in less than 48 hours.
Mm-hmm. Stressful.
And I should say, by the way, though I don't know that anybody knew what it would become exactly, there is context here because most people are calling this Woodstock West at the time. Okay. Woodstock has already happened, and that was massive, way bigger than anyone anticipated. Mm-hmm. Brief note on that. So my dad is from Syracuse, Liverpool, New York. Liverpool is a part of Syracuse, New York, not too far from Woodstock. And all of his friends were like, there's a bunch of bands going out and playing this farm in Woodstock this weekend. You want to go? And he was like, absolutely. We're all going to go and it's going to be sweet. But my dad worked at a deli counter, like cutting meat at like the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And they scheduled him for that weekend. He was like, can I have off? And they're like, no. You know, so-and-so's out. You got to take it. So he worked his job instead of going to Woodstock that weekend. Man. And he's told it's one of the great regrets of his life, but he was like, the thing you have to understand is nobody knew it was going to be Woodstock.
Right. It was some bands playing in a field.
Yeah, it was some bands playing in a field in Woodstock, New York, but nobody knew it would be this big legendary moment, or I absolutely would have gone. Mm-hmm. Those things can be hard to know at the time. They didn't know how many people were going to show up for Woodstock, and then a ton of people showed up for Woodstock.
Yeah. If he had known, he'd be like, you know what? This ham can cut itself. I'll be back later.
Yeah. So as much as like, and I'm sure that we'll do an episode talking more about Woodstock itself, that would be fun. But as much as that was a bit of a surprise, this is on the heels of it. So a lot of people do have a general sense of what they're trying to do. And I suspect that that's coloring a bit, why the, let's say the San Francisco government officials are like, no. And potentially why the guys that are at, what's the name of it? Sears Point Raceway are like, we're going to need some money.
Sure. Yeah.
For that.
If this is going to be Woodstock West, we know that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a big deal too. Yeah.
Yeah. So people are starting to know what to expect in various ways, which makes them either sheepish or greedy, depending on the circumstance. So anyway, that all aside, less than 48 hours to go. Biggest free concert of our lifetimes. Woodstock West is about to happen. The only question is where.
That's a big question.
So the band leans on their attorney, Melvin Belli, to kind of figure this out. As you can imagine, Keith Richards isn't cold calling every farm owner in the Bay Area.
Come on, Mel Belli, get this together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and I don't know how he works this, but attorneys, movers and shakers types have a way of just knowing a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. Mm-hmm. Right. So he eventually kind of lands. I don't know if it's his first choice. It probably wasn't, but he eventually gets connected with Dick Carter, the owner of Altamont Speedway in Tracy, California. Carter offers the venue for free because he's running a bit of a failing business. He's mostly running demolition derbies out of this racetrack in the middle of nowhere in California. Mm-hmm. And that's not going great. And so this guy is like, okay, if they have Woodstock West here, it's going to be called Altamont. I don't know if he knew that right away. It definitely was. And it was named after his speedway. But, the Woodstock brand was just like a town or somebody's farm. The Altamont brand could be mine. It'll be just as big. This could be huge. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bring some attention my way, and who knows what I can do with it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's willing to play ball on short dang notice. It always takes somebody a little desperate for one reason or another, right? That's just going to be like, sure.
The Derby can wait. Okay, we're doing something else this weekend.
So we're on, baby. Under 48 hours to go. We got a new location. It's Altamont Speedway in the middle of nowhere at the time. All these people are just going to have to get there some bloody how. And we're going to put on the biggest rock concert of our lifetimes. What could go wrong?
It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You got the Demolition Derby guy on the case. It'll be fine.
Exactly. Now, a bit of a presage of what will come. Chipmunk, who we've talked about, that is his name. I don't know if it's his Christian name. I should have looked that up between the episodes, but it's what he's known as, who's super involved in designing the sound and all of this and stagecraft and all this that makes it such a revolutionary tour. He had kind of designed the most recent version of the stage, at least, for the hilltop geography of Sears Point where they were going to be.
Oh, okay.
So that was all going to be good. Well, the problem with the Altamont Speedway is that he had to put it at the bottom of a slope.
Ah.
So he takes the stage that's designed for everyone to kind of look up to, and now it's basically down in the pit with high ground all surrounding it, which is different.
Which is how a lot of speedways are, to be fair.
Yeah, it's pretty normal. The thing that makes this a little bit challenging is with all of these people, having all the people on higher ground than the stage, once you combine gravity with that, makes things a little bad.
Yeah. And substances. It really it makes a storm of stuff.
Yeah. So they basically create like kind of the worst environment for safety in that the stage is set in this, it actually like a big funnel. All these people that are all jumping around and moving are like, everyone's trying to push towards the stage in every concert I've ever been at. And that's made a lot easier by the ground descending into where the stage is, which will eventually, well, it won't be great. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the actual show itself, which is coming up, I promise. But in kind of quickly like circling up what else is happening in the facility sense over here, this is a speedway that not a lot of people have ever been at before. And so there are not toilets or plumbing to handle what is coming to it. There's certainly no medical tents. The stage, like I mentioned, is actually only 4 feet high. Because if you're all the way at the top of a hill, you don't really need that. Yeah. Right? Not great. There are no physical barriers between the stage. It's just that little stage. They're just playing on a little podium with people lined up around them. Things aren't great. There are not parking lots to handle this. There is nothing of what you would ever want for that amount of people to descend on one place.
Basically, 0% of the infrastructure is ready for this.
Correct. So that's what's happening on the infrastructure front. Not a great initial sign. But things kind of get worse because any sort of group, like large festival like this, requires some form of security, as we all kind of know well and good now. This had been developed in recent years to this, because like we talked about in the last episode, there were not a lot of concerts on this scale before. And so they're kind of figuring this out. But they at least at this point are realizing like, okay, we need some level of security. But this is not like today where there are like private security firms you can just dial up and they're like, how many people do you need? Great, we'll send them there and they know what they're doing. No, it's not quite that. So they need to invent this out of nowhere. And famously, they reach out to the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane and say, hey, what did you guys do for all of your concerts at Golden Gate Park? And they said, oh, yeah, no problem. We have the Hells Angels do it.
The who? No, the what?
That's right, Blake. The Hells Angels motorcycle gang.
Oh, you mean those 1%ers? The outlaw gang? Oh, interesting choice. I mean, they're scary. I would do what they said.
Those guys are weird in that they're very intermixed in a lot of stories of the late 60s, love era. They're all around there too, kind of major characters in it that don't subscribe to the exact same rules, but they're also maybe a little more hippie than like Hells Angels these days. I mean, not by much. Don't get me wrong. I just mean like a little. They got a little bit of it.
I think there's a common thread of like we both want to do whatever we want, and most people don't like us, and so it kind of blends together in that way. Even though we
like drugs, and we don't believe in society as it's constructed currently.
Exactly. Yep. There's some differences in execution and definitely vibe, but I think the core is more related than it might seem.
Have you read Hunter Thompson's book where he lived with the Hells Angels in the mid 60s?
No, but I've heard about it a lot. I probably should.
It's really good. That's kind of like what put Hunter on the path early on. Was he embedded himself with the Hells Angels and boldly like wrote a book that was like pretty honest about what those guys did. And that got him a very bad rap with the Hells Angels, and they were not a fan of his at all. And like I believe, if I remember right, they beat the ever living snot out of him.
I think that's accurate. I remember that
story.
It's
a pretty bold book. Yeah. Anyway, I would imagine most listeners know who the Hells Angels are. And that speaks to, I mean, think about how many biker gangs you can name.
Gypsy Jokers, Brother Speed.
I know that you can. I mean the listener.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Not everybody can name a ton.
It's a culture that I find very fascinating, although I've never been associated with it, thankfully.
Yes. Yes. Me as well. Well, anyway, the Rolling Stones, not knowing, much about anything really. I mean, remember, they're mostly living in England at the time. Are like, okay, that sounds good. We'll do that. They make one kind of failing here, which is that the Hells Angels that are in San Francisco do, like I say, tend to be a little bit more hippie adjacent. But that's not necessarily all that they get. They pull in chapters from all over. So they pull in the Oakland and San Jose Hells Angels that are, even at the time, known to be a little bit more violent and certainly less like lovey-dovey hippie adjacent.
Yeah. It probably, goes with they probably fit the vibes of the towns they come from to some degree.
Exactly. Yeah. Sonny Barger, who's the Oakland Hells Angels leader, later testifies that he considered his men to be outlaws, not security guards. Yep.
Sonny Barger is a interesting character to study.
You probably know a lot more about him than I do.
Yeah, I probably more than I need to. But yeah, interesting is one way to describe him for sure.
Yeah. Now, granted, these guys do whatever they want in their free time. But, maybe they'll behave a little bit differently when they're, formally contracted in a proper formal engagement. They're being paid money to do a job, right? There's probably a contract dictating what sort of norms are okay. Sure, they might screw around and beat people up on the side, but this is work, We all are a little bit different at work. So the band decides that they should pay the Hells Angels with beer. They pay them in $500 worth of beer.
I know what'll settle them down.
That's right. Because what's better than the Hells Angels doing security? The drunk Hells Angels doing security.
Absolutely.
Granted, I don't know that a lot of those guys are getting drunk on beer, but still.
No, I think that's just how they hydrate.
Probably. Yeah. But I will say, if I'm showing up to do a job and they're like, your payment is in this enormous pile of beer. Like, well, I better drink me some beer then.
I'm obviously not getting any other compensation. Better make it worth my time.
May as well as have my fill.
And $500 worth of beer back then is a lot more beer. Let's be clear about that as well. That is some cans that they've got stacked up there. That's a lot.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
So this is what we got going on leading up to the festival.
Well, that sounds like it's going to all go buttery smooth and we can pretty much wrap this up.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you're like, look at what happened to us. We got stripped of our first location, then our second location. And then in under 48 hours, we were able to put together this incredible situation. We got a venue out in the middle of damn nowhere that no one's ever been to before, with no parking lot or really roads inbound, no bathrooms, no medical tents. We got the Hells Angels doing security. The stage is 4 foot high at the bottom of a big pit. And we did this all in only like 46 hours.
And not to mention, we are the largest touring act going right now, and we're doing it for free. So there'll be a few people that show up.
And that takes us to December 6th, 1969, the day of the Altamont Festival. So in the morning, approximately 300,000 people show up
to a speedway. I've been to speedways like this before. If 10,000 people showed up, it would be a lot. Let's put it that way. I'm just
300
guessing.
and I don't know how many people they were expecting. Probably not that many.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
I live in a town of 40,000 people. And it's a lot of people sometimes.
Wow. Yeah. That is 7.5 times your town.
The traffic around here can become unbearable with 40,000 people. So, and we have real roads.
Yeah. And so that is kind of what happens. So all these people are driving out here at the same time. Obviously, in no way was it made to handle it. So traffic jams get pretty gnarly, forcing tens of thousands of these people to just abandon their cars on the roads and start walking through this brown treeless landscape out in basically, almost the desert scrubland.
Oh yeah.
To get to the festival. So that's where we start off. On the drug side, which we just got to talk about because, frankly, there's not a bunch of people are probably bringing beer, but the Hells Angels have beer, but there's no bars or anything open. So it's kind of BYOD or B. So unlike the general like marijuana mushroom cloud that likely emerged from Woodstock, Altamont, most people are showing up using amphetamines and bad acid, basically.
Worth noting, the 1% biker gangs are known for running amphetamines. That's a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, biker meth and speed and whatnot.
Yep.
I've watched Breaking Bad.
Hey, you're not wrong. Some of that is from reality.
So that's kind of everyone's mood right now is driving through really bad traffic, hopped up on speed.
And possibly hallucinating.
Right, which is a mood. So the Hells Angels early on, they see this kind of rough situation going on. Like I said, there's no barricades and the stage is 4 feet high. So they decide that they should park their bikes in front of the low stage to create a bit of an impromptu barricade. Right?
Yeah. And what an image that has to be.
Oh, yeah. And you can see it. There are pictures. Yeah. So they do that. They arm themselves with like broken off pool cues. So just some basically police bats, and motorcycle chains, which is handy. I think they had those probably lying around.
They've got extras. Yeah.
So you got all these people, as I mentioned, crowded around on a slope. Whole bunch of people.
300,000 of them.
300,000 people.
Yeah.
And they're pushing and they're shoving. And if you're at the bottom of that slope, you're getting the weight of all those people on the high ground pushing down towards you. So you're being pushed towards the stage. Now, this is why I think the Angels were like, we need to create a barricade, which they did. But if you were at the front of that crowd, you were being pushed into not a barricade the way that you typically would when you go to concerts. You see everyone kind of slammed up against the barricade looking at the band. No, you're being pushed up against the Hells Angels motorcycles.
Yeah.
And how do you think the Hells Angels like people touching their motorcycles?
They're not a big fan of it.
They don't like it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really, it's kind of like their whole thing.
Right.
So, yeah. They don't.
If you don't believe us, listener, next time you're around a motorcycle gang, go over and jump on their motorcycle and ask them, how's this hog handle? And see how that goes. That's what I try to do anyway. They always get a kick out of it. You'd think they'd be mad, but it's so bold. They really, they respect you actually. Afterwards.
It can't possibly go wrong.
No, it's totally fine. It's important though that you refer to it as a hog. I've learned that.
Yeah, definitely. And look them right in the eye when you do it.
That's right.
How's this hog handle?
You don't want to show fear to them. Once they sense your fear, you're done for. So you really need to make them feel that you're a confident gentleman of a man.
I think the real thing is once you jump on, you say, how's this hog handle? And you be like, this feels a lot like my Honda. They really appreciate that.
I've got something of a motorcycle myself.
Yeah, yeah. My Goldwing feels exactly the same way.
I'm not calling yours a sissy motorcycle. I'm just saying mine feels pretty silly. You should think about getting a Honda.
Yeah. You know, they're more reliable.
They are. The maintenance on this way ought to really sting you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Harleys have a lot of upkeep, you know.
Anyway, so this is what's going on at the beginning of the festival. People are just getting their asses handed to them by the Hells Angels with bicycle chains and pool cues, while just being pushed into the Hells Angels. So that's where we're kind of starting off. And what do you know? Carlos Santana takes the stage. It's all going to be okay because Mr. Smooth himself is taking the stage.
So you get up there and be like, guys, you're never going to believe this, but in a few years, I'm going to be designing women's shoes.
Unfortunately, Rob Thomas was just a twinkle in his mother's eye at this time.
Yeah, he wasn't even... Never mind. We don't need to go through the whole lyrics, but I want to.
So Santana's set is mostly, I mean, on the curve, it's non-eventful. He plays a solid set. Fights are breaking out all over, but nothing too bad happens to him, relatively speaking.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of move through that, but everyone's getting warmed up with Lil Santana. So next up, we get the Jefferson Airplane, which is really, in my opinion, the best version of that band. I'm not a big Jefferson Starship or, God forbid, Starship fan, but the Jefferson Airplane, wow, fantastic.
All right.
So they're up there taking the stage, and they were pretty involved in planning this too, because they're in that whole, San Francisco crew as well. So they should feel, super comfortable. They're the ones who recommended a lot of this to happen. Should be a cakewalk. Well, at one point, there's a fight that breaks out. And by a fight, I mean a Hell's Angel is beating the shit out of a fan. So Marty Balin from the Jefferson Airplane jumps off the stage to help out because he's the band. He's the talent, right? Like once I emerge, they will see that it is okay. Well, Marty gets punched out by a Hell's Angel, which knocks him unconscious.
Yeah, it's almost like the Hell's Angels don't really care who you are.
They really don't.
They don't.
So that doesn't go great. Well, the Grateful Dead are next up after the Jefferson Airplane. They are arriving on a helicopter, which is probably smart because it seems like I don't even know how anybody could get into the, they'd be schlepping their instruments probably a bunch of miles to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So they arrive on a helicopter and they learn that Marty Balin has been assaulted. Upon learning this, Jerry Garcia says that the vibe is too dangerous. We ain't playing. We're getting the hell out of here.
Smart, Jerry.
Now, this is interesting to me. Yes, he's right. He read this correctly. And if more people had read it correctly as he did, maybe we'd be better off. But also, this feels a little bit their fault.
I agree. Yeah. He was like, this is not how it went when we did it.
Yeah, that they're the ones to be like, oh, hell no. Take the helicopter out of here.
Wait, you mean the guys we recommended just knocked a guy out and one of the artists? It's like the Homer Simpson going into the bushes.
Just moving back into the bushes. Yeah, that's a little bit weird. Now, there's some problems with this too, because when they just pull out, they don't have like a way to backfill that space. So now you've got the length of a Grateful Dead set, which is long, of just empty time. So you got this massive amount of time that it's just empty now in the middle, a couple hours likely. And all these people are standing around with no trees in the middle of dang nowhere. Yet again, I will mention that there are no bathrooms and they don't even have their phones to stare at. Right. God knows what people did.
Not a lot of water, not a lot of anything. Still on drugs though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not good. So that kind of riles everyone up a little bit more, as you can imagine. But there's still another opener. So Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, who are massive at this time, take the stage. They are probably feeling like, the Grateful Dead aren't playing? Why? And they're like, oh, they were like, hell no, get me out of here. And you're like, oh. So they go up to play their set. They play a pretty rushed through set. You can imagine they're like, get me out of this place. This is a rough vibe. Stephen Stills, the Stills in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, was reportedly being stabbed repeatedly in the leg with a sharpened bicycle spoke throughout the set, but continued playing.
By who?
I presume a Hell's Angel.
Okay.
The people nearby them with the means to access and sharpen bicycle spokes.
This is very weird, but okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't go great either. So now all that happens and mercifully, things are not going great, but mercifully it's time for the Rolling Stones to play. It's been moved up a little bit. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young play a little earlier because there's nobody on really for a while. So it's time. Well, there's a problem there because since this huge gap emerged in the schedule because of the Dead, the sun's still out. And if you remember, one of the coolest, most awesome things about this tour that the Rolling Stones put together is this incredible light show that they've got cooking, which is not going to look like anything in the middle of the day at the Demolition Derby track. So, they decide to wait. Now, also, I see mentioned that Bill Wyman arrived late for some reason. So there's like a little bit of that at play too. One way or another, they're like, we're not going on at this free festival that we kind of put it on. We're going to wait a little while.
They wanted to film it. Let's keep that in mind. Like
also that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually right. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, that's part of it. They don't want to be, the camera people lose their minds when the light changes.
Oh, yeah.
They do not like that.
Shout out my sister.
Starting out, in daylight and then riding through the golden hour into night would probably be really hard, I would think. So that's a really good point. That's probably a really big piece of it also.
Yeah, they wanted to film it, and that was like part of why they shifted the venue in the first place. So like, let's try to get something out of this.
Yeah. And you really wonder, at this point, backstage, hearing all of this, Steven Stills has been, stabbed a whole bunch of times. Marty Balin's gotten the crap knocked out of him. You wonder if the Stones are like, or if they're like, it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them going either way. Like, I know it was rough for you guys, but we're the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be fine.
Exactly. So anyway, for a variety of reasons, the Stones wait, sun goes down, it gets cold out there, and people are not doing great. If they were doing great to begin with, they're not feeling great now.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the heels of that everyone's feeling, finally, the Rolling Stones take the stage, and start their set. Cameras start rolling and everything. They started out with one of my favorite Stones songs, Sympathy for the Devil. And immediately, a massive brawl erupts at the front. The band stops playing like really fast. And Mick Jagger says, brothers and sisters, come on now. That means everybody just cool out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Band restarts the song, makes it through. But they're kind of shaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of the set is, kind of continues as it normally would have.
Probably worth reiterating because this was mentioned a while back. This stage is very short.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is occurring very close to them.
That's a really good point. You're right. Mm-hmm. They're not looking down on it. It's like, they're looking like out. And
usually when they're up on stage, they can kind of see over everybody and you kind of have that distance, that separation, and you get a vibe for what's going on in the rest of the crowd. They're down. They only see just a sea of people's heads kind of going out over them. So it's very intimidating to look out and see that. And a lot of them are upset.
Yeah, and people that are fighting get moved easily. That's shifting their way. And then they've got the Hells Angels between them and them. The Hells Angels who allegedly were stabbing the opening band in the leg while they were playing. Not a good circumstance for kind of anybody.
Who have already punched one of the people out and beat up a bunch of other concert goers. So it's like, this is a nerve-wracking situation.
Very much so. So they continue the set, but things are tense. There's little kind of micro scruffles and skirmishes and stuff like that that emerge. But like it's a bad vibe in like the worst kind of possible ways. And that all really comes to a head when they're playing the song Under My Thumb. So during the song, there's a man named Meredith Hunter, which I don't know that I've met a man named Meredith.
I don't think I have.
I'm not saying this to, say anything ill of him or anything like that. I just don't know that I had. But it is a gentleman. He is in fact an 18-year-old black man. He's dressed in a lime green suit. You can see in the footage the lime green suit like partly like makes it all really clear. The center point of a lot of this because he really stands out. He's there. A later autopsy indicates that he was high on methamphetamine. So you got that going on. So he gets into a scuffle with the Hells Angels and they chase him out into the crowd. He returns to the front of the stage, looking agitated as you would be if you were being chased by the Hells Angels through Altamont Speedway on methamphetamine at 18 years old, wearing a green suit.
Mm-hmm.
And he draws this like long barreled, I think it's a 22 revolver from his jacket and raises it up towards, up in the air. Some say towards the stage, unclear there in some ways, which leads to the Hells Angel Alan Pissarro leaping from the sound scaffolding, parrying the gun with his left hand and stabbing Hunter in the upper back and neck with a knife that's in his right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter himself then is swarmed by the Hells Angels and they just beat the ever-loving shit out of him, basically, Yep. He did have a gun, so there's some, we'll talk about all this. This has been discussed many times in history, but it's a murky situation in some ways. The band stops briefly, But Keith Richards just pretty quickly just starts hitting chords again to restart the song. They seem like they're kind of agitated with all of these constant interruptions. Now, the band does not seemingly see any of this. They know that there's a scuffle, but they don't see the gun or the stabbing or like all that sort of stuff. So they're stopping just like they're stopping for all of these little skirmishes, but there's so many that they're probably pretty agitated about this whole thing. Right. So yeah, Keith Richards just bangs in to the next song. Mick Jagger calls out, we've got somebody hurt here. Is there a doctor? Not really knowing what's going on. Hunter dies backstage waiting for a helicopter to take him somewhere that he can receive treatment. But the helicopter is very full. Again, bad logistics.
Okay.
Everyone's trying to get the heck out of there. So that is how this moment at Altamont ends.
Right.
But there's a lot of fallout that happens. So, sorry, I cut forward in my notes. They end the set with Street Fighting Man, which is interesting.
Weird. Yeah. Okay.
Unintentional, but interesting. Street Fighting Man, by the way, is kind of a weird, like the Rolling Stones trying to be like, we're tough guys, fighting in the street gang, little British violence and whatnot. It's kind of, relative to the time, it's kind of lame. I don't know.
Right.
It's a good song. Yeah. But they board an overloaded helicopter and get out of there. Allegedly, their tour manager, Sam Cutler, has to hang onto the skids as it takes off.
Jeez.
So as rough as it was, they're like, get us the heck out of here. We're out. Not knowing what happened exactly. And in fact, many people don't know what happened. Initially, media outlets report the concert as a great success.
Well, a lot of people showed up. So
a ton of people showed up. We had Woodstock West. A lot of these issues that are happening. I mean, again, there's no social media. A lot of people were at the festival and were like, that thing was sweet. I didn't get stabbed by anybody.
They probably couldn't see either. Like they're not down there. If you're halfway up, you can't see what's going on right in the front. You just know the Rolling Stones sounded great. It was cool.
So most of these people are going home telling that story. And that's kind of what it is for a couple of weeks. In January 1970, so just basically the month later, Rolling Stone magazine publishes the expose, The Rolling Stones Disaster at Altamont, Let It Bleed, which is the album that they're touring under. And again, a very appropriate album title for everything that would kind of occur. This is what reveals all of the chaos that occurred, and especially the killing or murder that occurred there. There was a trial that happened in 1971 on the heels of a lot of this press, where Alan Pissarro, who was the one who jumped off the scaffolding and broke up the gun, was tried for murder in this. Now, interestingly, he was actually acquitted on the grounds of self-defense. The jury looked at the footage because they'd been videotaping this, so they were just square in on it. And mind you, I mean, I think video footage in 1971 was not like a part of every trial at the frequency that it is nowadays.
No, it's because they were filming the concert.
Right. So kind of incidental, and it happened right at the front where all the cameras were and everything. So the video footage corroborates that Hunter had drawn this gun before Pissarro attacked. The Rolling Stones did eventually pay a $10,000 settlement to Meredith Hunter's family in a civil suit, but there was no criminal guilty verdict found through here. Now, that said, even though this was like in the eyes of the law, it was, a person died, but it was self-defense, and that was kind of it. Nobody goes to jail or anything like that. This moment has some really significant cultural effects and is generally seen by many as the end of the 60s, the end of the peace and love era. And I think that there's a few reasons for that. So, Woodstock is seen as this, 4 months earlier. This is seen as in many ways like the peak of this thing. It's a free festival. Everyone's just playing. It's amazing. Drugs are cool. Everyone's being really sweet and kind to each other and, screwing each other in the mud.
Great.
It's the new world, baby. Everything's going to be fine. Well, it's not many months later that you see this band, like we said, on the heels of a lot of allegations about being greedy and trying to just co-opt this movement and maximize profit on it, everything else be damned, put together this show at the end of their tour to try to reclaim some of that. And what happens is, money is made by some parties. The film goes on and is a big thing in a lot of ways. But it's not great for the people, right? I mean, this is not peace and love. This is meth and fighting. People are dying, absolute chaos. You basically see the cracking of this sense of there's always a sense of like, all right, everything is very like governed and specific about how things work in society. There's too many rules, man. And I'm not saying that perspective is wrong. But then you start peeling away those layers, and for a while, everything's fine. You're like, oh, that was all just a bunch of people being fuddy-duddies in a lot of ways. And that all kind of works until you get to a point where, you have like a free concert out in the middle of nowhere. There's no safety, no security. The Hells Angels are doing security, which is to say there's no security. The security is fighting the people, and things fall apart. Right. And this kind of shows the dark side of sort of like the anarcho-pacifism that exists at the time. That like, oh, everything maybe won't just be totally fine.
It's one of those things that I think any very rigid ideology tends to disregard some facet of human nature, if that makes any sense. This philosophy works just fine in a small-ish commune, right? It can totally work. But when you scale it, that's when it becomes problematic. When you have 300,000 people showing up and there's nothing really to direct them, it's going to be chaos, and there's going to be hazards, and there's going to be problems, because we as humans are messy. I mean, when left to our own devices, order is not the thing that tends to follow unless somebody is instructing there to be order. And I hate that because I don't like being told what to do. So
we're alike in that way.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. So I say that recognizing, like, in theory, I should support this sort of way of being, but I know that it kind of ignores general human tendencies. At least that's my view on it.
I think you're dead right there. I think another thing that occurs is that the human sense of empathy, I think, doesn't scale infinitely. So it's difficult not to be empathetic to a one-on-one person that you're talking to. It's difficult to feel empathetic for all 300,000 people in a big group.
Or somebody that's so seemingly unlike you. It can be hard to relate for some people. Like, for sure, the hippies to relate to the Hells Angel that's hitting you with a chain. It's hard to have empathy for that person. You kind of, no matter how much peace and love is in your heart, you tend to want to make that stop happening. And usually you have to be violent to do so.
Oh, and that's a good point, because I think that another view of this that I think I'd love to talk to somebody who was around in Haight-Ashbury in the 1960s, because they could speak to this a lot better than I can. But I think another thread that you can kind of weave through this is that the death of the hippie movement, the peace and love movement that was happening in the late 60s, was in some ways due to it being co-opted by a number of different people. In this case, co-opting by the Rolling Stones, a very wealthy and would continue to be very wealthy band that are riding on this coattails and making money from it, and also the Hells Angels, who don't really philosophically agree with this stuff outside of that. Well, anarchy's cool,
right? And we can sell you drugs,
and we can make a lot of money selling you drugs, right? And so, for various money making ends, I think a lot of people would say capitalist ends, but I'm like, you're talking about the Hells Angels.
Yeah. I mean,
greed exists outside of capitalism in some ways, it's people have been selling to each other to make money for a long time.
Money
for
or
a lot
power.
longer than we've had that.
It could be power thing too.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, basically there's exploitation happening on all sides for various, economic or influential purposes. And that leads to people being hurt as well.
Yeah. Well, and some people, this is, all right, here we go. Tinfoil hat time. Some people blame the government for a lot of this stuff, including Altamont. Some people say that this was co-opted is not the right word, but it was infiltrated. That's what I'm looking for by certain operatives to destroy the hippie movement because of its influence on culture. And they didn't like that. They say the same thing about Manson and a few other things that were sort of the death knell of the peace and love movement. I don't know that I fully believe that at all. I know that because it's come out, that they've had a hand in distributing LSD, but, I don't know that I believe they sent an operative in to create this situation. I don't really believe that, but some people do.
It's an interesting point. I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past J. Edgar Hoover. And
no,
it's not like the thought just never occurred to him. He was a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, and conniving.
So it wouldn't surprise me. At the same time, I don't think J. Edgar Hoover booked the Altamont Speedway or booked the Hells Angels or decided to pay them in beer.
No, I don't think so.
If they did inflame it at the end, a lot of, it was set on the path.
Some people have said that about Meredith, and I don't really believe that, but
it's tough.
He did pull a gun out of nowhere, which is weird, but not
it's a weird thing to do when you're 1 out of 300,000 people and you're buried in you're at the bottom of a pit that you're not going to be able to get out of.
But you're talking about a dude on meth. They're not known for making great decisions.
No, you're right.
It's not. I've been around a few of them in my neck of the woods. Decision making low on their skill level list. Getting a lot of weird things done. That's high on their skill level list.
Yeah. Cleaning floors, grout. Walls. Grout. Yeah. All that works out.
Sidewalks. Yeah. The whole thing.
I got to get the name of your contractor. There's a lot going on. I'm with you. I don't really buy that exact interpretation, but it's an interesting point. I wouldn't put it past him. In some ways, these things, to your point, I think really, when the hippie movement is small, it can operate under certain principles, and sort of like a casual anarchy is a lot more okay. As the years wear on into the 60s, it starts going mainstream. This is such a big thing. You've got hundreds of thousands of people going to concerts on both coasts. Once you get to that amount of people, I mean, anyone who's ever been in a scene has experienced this on a smaller scale, right? It's like, oh, it was super cool and it was small and fun. And then the more and more people pile in, like the more casuals kind of show up, you're like, those people don't really get it. They don't get why we're here and how we do things. It becomes impossible to replicate those norms that quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And also, the bigger a scene of any sort gets, the people that started it maybe are true believers, quote unquote. And then the people that show up later tend to be slightly less dedicated and have a different viewpoint on things.
Yep. And it always, when you do that sort of thing, as much as I think the vast majority of people, like probably the super majority of people, are there with some level of decent intention, those things open the door to bad actors who, as much as we hate to admit it, do kind of exist.
They do.
And they would exist, I think, in any economic system or governmental system. They're just bad actors. And we've covered, even on the short run of this podcast thus far, how many people that one way or another co-opted the 60s hippie movement to start their own little mini cult.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The door was wide open for a lot of people.
Yeah. Never goes well. And also there's the unintentional bad actors as well. There's people who are doing it for nefarious purposes, but there's some people that are just kind of dumb and they cause bad things to happen because they're stupid. And
absolute power corrupts absolutely. Some people just get the power and then turn into
100%.
They never thought. So anyway, this was captured in the film Gimme Shelter, which features all of this on tape. And in which, Mick Jagger is kind of shown as aghast at what happened. Obviously, the Rolling Stones went on to continue to be a very, very big band.
They did all right.
Yeah, they did fine. Was this, in fact, the death knell of the hippie movement, i.e., would the hippie movement not have died off in absence of Altamont? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think this is just a harbinger that's easy to point to of what was happening. But it definitely was seen as the time that as Hunter Thompson said, the wave crested back out from the Bay Area. So it's a heck of a story. It's our first two-parter that we ever did. I think it made sense because there's such cool things to cover on this concert of on one hand, revolutionizing what a big tour could be. And on the other hand,
Showing what it shouldn't be.
Showing what it shouldn't be, yeah. And pointing out the stress fractures that can occur from that. A lot of that stuff would go on to be, not solved, but vastly improved in the 70s, wherein we saw all sorts of bands take this template the Rolling Stones established on this tour and take it worldwide.
I mean, I think it's still improving. I've went to the same country music festival for the last few years, and the difference between first year and the most recent year was staggering. And this is by a company who puts on a lot of festivals. So even individual locations have learning curves. It's way better than it was the first year as far as organization goes. So
yeah, they're figuring it out more and more all the time, right?
I couldn't believe the state of the new toilets. It was the cleanest festival toilets I've ever seen in my life. It was incredible. This was not the VIP area. This was the regular area.
Remember when Bonnaroo got bought out by Live Nation or AC? I can't remember who did it, but the first year I went after that, and it was like, boo, this sucks. The corporate moneymakers came in, and they did, I think, eventually ruin it. But definitely the first year, it was like, ooh, these toilets are so nice. They've got showers here now.
Yeah, this is great. Look at this.
Thank you, corporate daddy.
Shower me, please.
To the listener out there, and I'll let you read us out, Captain. But thank you for tuning in. Hopefully to both parts of this. I thought it was fun for me. It was cool to tackle a larger story in some ways than we've tackled before, and I hope that it was a learning opportunity for you, or if not, just a cool way to hang out with your two old buds, Scott and Blake, as we shoot the shit about time periods in which we were never alive in, and what we think probably happened during them. So,
yes.
Thank you, dear listener, and Blake, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you all so much for hanging out. We really appreciate you. Listen, this show is growing really fast, and we really, really appreciate everybody who's checking it out. If you could, hit those reviews. Those reviews really do help other people realize this is a real show. And so give us the 5 stars. Give us a little write-up if you're on Apple Podcasts. That's one where you can actually leave a whole description about what you think about the show. Anything positive is welcome. Anything negative, you can eat me. So thank you for hanging out. I really do appreciate y'all very much. And we're going to be eating more tape spaghetti all year long, slurping it up. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you on the internet very soon.